the popular conception of the Manosphere right now is Kevin Samuels or Fresh and Fit. They're holding, and not even that. What's it? A red pill overdose, I think, is the new up and comer, right? I guess, I don't know, but it's basically holding women accountable, and they're all ratchet hoes, and they're not the best examples, let's just say, of upstanding femininity. But for the most part, sorry, I mean, maybe some of you are, but the idea of holding women accountable, the reason why you can build a very successful brand on that is because it's so effing rare, man. Nobody has held women accountable since 1965. No one, not in that way anyways. Certainly not accountable for everything for the generations that have built up to where we are with women today. So when you have this old order way of thinking about, well, we shouldn't beat up on women all the time. In fact, people accuse me of that. Like, I kept saying this. Like, I remember back in March, people ran me up the flagpole, man, because I said, these shows like Kevin Samuels and these shows like Fresh and Fit, they have some merit to them. They have some teeth behind it, right? But eventually, it feels like beating up on children, because at the end of the day, at the end of the show, what have you achieved? I told Myron this too, and he knows this. It's like, you'll get to the point where a woman will go, "Who hurt you?" That's when you've reached the point of diminishing returns. Well, what happens when you reach the point of diminishing returns for the actual template of the show? Like, what's the point? What's the point of even doing that? Because at some point you reach the point of diminishing returns, and it feels like beating up on children. And people lost their minds when I said that. As soon as Giga Karen, that one girl, that Karen on that girl, what was her, Amanda, on the show that I was on in March. I was like, nobody saw the 2 hours that myself and Donovan and even Aaron Clary were doing our work on these girls. They only saw the last 20 minutes of that show when Kevin Samuels came in there and just basically cleaned house. That was what everybody was interested in. They didn't care about the 2 hours prior to that, where we were having some pretty decent conversations. And then at one point, Amanda looks at Myron and says, "Who hurt you?" I'm like, okay, it's over. We're done. And I was just like, at that point, it was the point of diminishing returns. There's nothing constructive is going to come out of that conversation anymore. And we've been at it for 2 hours. Well, that's the thing, is one of the reasons why these guys get so upset about holding women accountable is because, according to the old order beliefs, it seems like beating up on children already. They don't even have to watch the whole show, or they don't have to watch any more than half of one show. And it seems to them like, well, these guys are just beating up on children. They're beating up on women. And what that does is it triggers the innate male protector dynamic. Women are the vulnerable sex, and they need to be protected. Children are vulnerable. They need to be protected. When guys tell you women are like children, well, yeah, that's instinctually they are to guys, because men have this innate need to protect women, to provide for them, and to protect, and to be parentally invested at some point, right? I mean, assuming who the guy is. But the 3 Ps, like the beta buck side of hypergamy, we have an innate need to want to, anyways, engage in those aspects at some point. And when guys build and base their entire understanding of intersexual dynamics on just the beta bucks side of hypergamy, yeah. Oh, I can't believe they're holding these women accountable. How dare you? What about you, mister? That right there is a feminist argument. That is a feminist reframe of whatever has been going on. You will hear the women on Fresh and Fit, on Kevin Samuels, on my show, on anybody's show, when there's a guy who's a red pill guy and the woman is talking and she has no counter argument. You know what she tries to do? She says, well, ooh, men do it too. Ooh, you guys are worse. Here's the thing. Double standard, double standard, double standard. That's where that comes from. Go look at the double standard video. I did a whole episode on that. Oh my gosh, how can you say one thing about those women when you don't look at yourself? Take care of the mote in your eye or the plank in your eye before you complain about the mote in mine. That's even Bible, right? Yeah. Take care of your own house before you start talking shit about my house. Yeah, you can make a scriptural argument about that if you want to, and they do. Well, you shouldn't beat up on women. Well, yeah, I agree. You shouldn't. And that's exactly what it feels like. And when that is integral to your understanding, in your religious understanding and your ego investments in that understanding, is attacked by a guy who is holding women's feet to the fire about their actions and their beliefs and their hubris and their entitlements and the utter lunacy of what that woman's expectations are, particularly when that woman is already at her epiphany phase or maybe after. Yeah, man, because they have no reframe. And the reframe is always this. Well, what about guys? Guys do it too. That's not what we're talking about, honey. We're talking about you. And so when you do that, Mr. White Knight Blue Pill Christian guy comes in and says, hey, you leave her alone. And that's not what he's saying literally right here, but that's a sentiment. It's a white knighting, blue pill white knight, right? It's a white knighting for womankind. And that is a result of an understanding of how to reframe a debate according to belief, according to responsibility. And that's what I was going to say, is that personal responsibility is a huge deal to this mindset. You want to know why they reject evolution or even empirical data that would in any way conflict with the fact that you have free will, because if you can question free will or consciousness or whatever, and a lot of people are, I realize there's a conversation going on about that right now. I'm not an expert in that, but just asking the wrong questions is enough to trigger the well, you just want to get out, you just want a license to sin, you just want a license to bang whoever you want. No, I'm asking questions that you don't have an answer for. I'm asking questions that are difficult to confront because they're an attack on your ego investments. Your ego investments is that belief. It's not an attack on the belief, it's an attack on you. And that's why it's like, oh, let's turn this around, let's reframe. That's exactly what women do. That's the personal responsibility part of this. Like, hey, the devil made me do. Remember, I read that. It's no longer the devil made me do it. It's my selfish gene made me do it. My biology made me do it. So what do? We turn the red pill into an ideology so that we can, at least in some way, have some kind of counter argument. And a lot of red pill guys take that bait. You're not going to take. Don't come at me with that. I am not taking that bait. But again, it's like 2 + 2 = 4 or 2 + 2 = 5. Objective truth is that, women need to be held accountable. Women do need that. Well, why is it so popular? Because it's so rare and has been rare for a long time. Well, women need to take responsibility for themselves. Yes, they do. And the reason why it's popular on YouTube right now is because no one's been doing it. And certainly no one's been doing it with the objective, rational breakdown that the red pill provides guys with. So why is it red pill overload, right? They don't know what the hell they're talking about, but it seems like logic. And when you get to a point, you don't even need that much logic, because you get to a woman to the point where you got the diminishing returns. It's all over. Frank Castle you off the show, right? Boot you off the show, or, okay, go have another White Claw, honey. The end of conversation basically is what it ends up being. All right, let's keep going here. I'm going to up this to, okay. Oh, and then the other part was male accountability, because that's what he was talking about. Well, what about men? Men do it too. What about accountability? Men need to be better men, and then women will be good. They've been saying that for ages. They've been saying that at least as long as I have been in the quote unquote manosphere. For the last 20 years, we've been saying that. Well, women would be better if men were better. The reason why women suck is because men sucked first. Boy, that's a lot of responsibility, right? Particularly in a gynocentric social order that does everything to disadvantage men. When we're in a gynocentric social order that has assimilated mainstream churches and has inserted that ideology into, and that faith has put feminism into what was an old order faith, you're fighting a real uphill battle, man. Because now you conflate feminism, you conflate gynocentrism, you conflate blank slate equalism, you conflate social constructionism with your faith. That's, it's one thing to try to get a guy to unplug from the matrix. It's an entirely different animal to get a guy to say, you know what, you need to rethink your faith before you start talking about gender issues. Like this guy, Ruslan, he's a perfect example of why I could never take guys like back in the day, pastors, seriously when they were talking about, it would be like Valentine's Day, and we're going to talk about marriage and love and sex and all this other stuff. Later on in this interview, he starts talking about Mark Driscoll. I am intimately familiar with Mark Driscoll. I've written at least 3 different articles about him from as far back as 2011. Some of the earliest essays I wrote was about Mark Driscoll and how he got pushed out of Mars Hill. I know exactly what happened. When these guys were, again, these guys were in middle school, I was writing about Mark Driscoll. And there's a reason he's gone. And it has nothing to do with the fact that he's conventionally masculine. He's trying to remasculinize the church. It doesn't have anything to do with that. It's because Mark Driscoll was a blue pill beta and is still a blue pill beta today because he can't rethink his faith. His faith was assimilated by a gynocentric social order, fed back to him, and he was raised on that same faith. Well, how do I know that? Because I know that there was this crisis of identity or whatever he had back in, I think it was 2009 or 2010, when he found out that his virgin bride wasn't actually a virgin. She'd already knocked it out with some guy in the church group before she met him. At least that's the reports I got, and that's what I was writing about at that time. And that really shook his world, man, because he thought he had it all down. He thought he was doing everything by the book, the right way. He was right in the fact that the church has become feminized, completely feminized. Women are far more religious, by the way, than men will ever be. Women have a much more, like I would, and I argue in the book, have an innate need for magical thinking. They have an innate, well, that's why chick crack works, right? Like pickup artists from back in the day figured that one out like from day one. Hey, chick crack seems to work. Let's try it. Okay, well, put that in the book. Yeah, that was easy. That was a no-brainer. So, you know, women tend to be we're more spiritual than you are because we're more empathic and we're more in touch with our emotions. That right there should tell you something. Belief is intimately connected to the emotional interpretive process of human beings. Now, I mentioned earlier on the Isaac Asimov quote, where I said that anything that is sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. And magical thinking is like used as an explanation. It's like when we don't know whatever the hell else it could be, it's got to be magic or aliens or, you know, something supernatural or something outside that we just simply don't understand. And so our imagination starts working. Our magical thinking also, by the way, keeps us alive. I think that's my opinion. I'm spitballing here. That's my opinion. So when people are confronted with objective realities that they can't explain, or that they don't have enough, maybe they simply don't have enough information, they tend to fall back on faith and fall back on magical thinking. And again, I'm not saying that's bad or good. I'm just saying it is what it is. But when we consider magical thinking, when we consider the fact that anything we don't understand is going to be conflated with magical thinking, that's when we kind of have to remember that's the mechanics there. The problem is this. Is that when your faith and when your understanding of, it could be gender dynamics through your faith, it could be gender dynamics through whatever, right? Your ideology, your political ideology, your worldview, I don't care what it is. Now, gender dynamics, understanding how to get laid, how to start a family, how to have babies, how to get sex, whatever it is, that is something that is a survival drive in human beings. We want, first of all, men, we want to get laid, right? Women want to get laid too, and they want eventually, I mean, the ultimate cause of that is to reproduce. We got that. So when we can wrap that up in magical thinking, that's really tough. But the problem is that when we look at our sort of faith, what comes from that magical thinking, because we didn't understand human nature, or maybe we did, but we just kind of you took it on faith, right? When empirical data enters that and breaks that faith, it goes from, it's no longer magical. It's no longer that belief set that you had before about the belief, okay, God says it's going to be this way. You want to know why guys still get married in the church right now, despite all the data of, you know, like success of marriage and like, what is it? If you had if the girl has a body count of like, you know, 4 or more, your chances of having a successful, you know, happy marriage are reduced as a result of that. Like there's clinical, actual, you know, empirical reasons why that is. But if we don't understand it, we're going to apply faith to it. We're going to apply magical thinking to it. Well, you know, that it's right or wrong. And now she's right. Now she's wrong. Now she's whatever. I'm going to fast forward here to this one part here where this goes down. I'm kind of prefacing that part here. But the magical thinking part, when you have something that is faith-based, okay, this is just the way we do it, because my faith, the Quran, the Bible, the Torah, the Bhagavad Gita, whatever your religious text is, says we're supposed to do it this way. And then you have something that explains why you're doing it that way. It ceases to be an article of faith, and it enters into like the scientific material understanding. And we just go, of course. That you want to know why a lot of people think that they're whatever their religion is, I don't care what it is, but they'll say, Islam, Christianity, Judaism was really the real red pill, Rollo, because all this stuff that's being explained to you by now, we already figured this out a long time ago. Yeah, with magical thinking. Best practices might have been like, well, maybe the Ancient of Days knew the nature of women and therefore said, okay, treat women like this. And it worked, and it worked for the society. It worked for the people who were the believers in that tribe of whatever it was. But now we can explain it. For instance, like the prohibitions on like eating pork or shellfish. Well, what's you probably know the Chris Rock routine where he's like, if you have a ham and shrimp or something like that, or put a lobster or whatever. Yeah, it's good, man. It tastes great. We can cook it. We know it's right. We can cure ham now. We don't have to worry about trichinosis. We don't have to worry about any kind of infection or any kind of we don't have to worry about dying if we eat these foods anymore. But in the Torah and the Quran, it says don't eat pork. Well, the latent function of that is to keep the believers alive, because it was like, oh my God, they're eating pork, and don't eat hooved animals. Unless it's a goat, I guess. But don't eat hooved animals because Allah said no. God said no. Jehovah said no. Yahweh said no. Whatever it is. Those are the prohibitions. Now that had a function to it. And once we get to a point where we can explain, oh, well, it seems to me like that seemed like a pretty good idea. And if we say God said it, then people won't eat stuff that's going to kill them. Now we don't have to worry about that. Bacon tastes good. Ham tastes good. Remember that in Pulp Fiction? But now it goes from being an article of faith to being like, well, it looks like God had infinite wisdom. He knew what he was talking about. Because now we can explain it away. Yeah, but is it still magical thinking? No, it's entered the realm of reality. It's gone from 2 + 2 = 5 to 2 + 2 = 4. Now take that and apply that to intersexual dynamics. Take that and apply that understanding, going from magical thinking to being explained. When you take an article of faith that is magical and you say, here's why it works. Here's how it works. It's no longer faith, because it's right there. It's empirical. We can see how it works. It's right there. The machine works. The mechanics work. It's no longer faith. Now you can use that as justification for other articles of faith, but that aspect is no longer valid. So like I can remember when people were telling me like, if you go back and you read like the book of Revelations, and in the book of Revelations, there's like all these prophecies and everything else. Like, the world will know when the Antichrist comes or the beast is on the earth, blah, blah, blah. Oh, the whole world will know. Reading that in like, I don't know, 1910, it'd have been like, wow, this is miraculous. I just got to take this on faith. Now we go, yeah, of course the whole world will know, or everybody's going to call each other, or we're going to say, hey, the beast is here. It's taken for granted right now. Is that an article of faith? No, we know exactly how that's going to happen. Again, take that and apply what we know in an empirical sense, in what we know in 2021, and we have easy access to it. And if we want to find the research, we can find it. Any lay person can find the research of it. It challenges that article of faith. Once that happens, we go, oh, we can explain that. It ceases to be technology that is sufficiently advanced to be considered magical. Now, take that and use that towards the idea of personal responsibility, of personal accountability, of all that religious stuff that goes along with this stuff, and the presumption that men need to take more responsibility. And you know what I'm going to say next. Responsibility without authority is slavery. And every single religious pundit I have ever encountered, from Candace Owens to the guys in the roommates, responsibility for men. If men would just man up and take responsibility, the world would be a better place. Great. Can I have the authority that goes along with that so that I can actually enforce that responsibility? Well, we wouldn't want to make the ladies uncomfortable. Bullshit. That's the problem. It's not responsibility. It's authority. again, you want more details? You want more? It's right here, guys. Ruslan, dude, this is the book. Read this book. In fact, you don't have to read it. By the middle of this month, you'll be able to listen to it on Audible.